When you're doing this, when you're putting all this together, you have this complicated task of trying to balance the form of the product with its function. How do you do that? What's good advice on how to think about that?
Well, I think, it's hard, but it's worth doing. I think what Mandy said earlier about of getting to why and keeping that why in mind rather than everything else you've thought of after that is a big way to do it. Knowing that you want to solve a problem, like to us, that's the most important thing when you're designing or making a product. It has to solve a real problem. If it doesn't, nobody's gonna care enough to spend their hard-earned dollars getting it and buying it. So to us, and I think this is solved different ways by different companies, to us, we wanted to make sure we kept the why and the problem in mind, and then from there found ways to create a beautiful form.
How many iterations are you typically going through? Like for the lights, if you don't mind me asking, like how many iterations did you have to go through before you found the right iteration?
So there were a few different phases of the design. So the first ones with the firm that we're working with, they come to us with pencil drawings, and there were 5 different concepts that they brought us. And at that point, we were only really trying to make a photography light that could be broken into a zoom light. Maybe it's a ring light. It wasn't a completely fully formed idea. And so from those, you take kernels of what you like, and you then make the next iteration of 5 different options. And you take from those what you like, combine that. And so you're constantly making Frankenstein's monsters of the things that you like, and then progressing closer and closer.
Trying to keep the form in check while you're adding all these things together.
Exactly. So we had, I believe we had 4 rounds of kind of formal design. And then after that, you go into prototyping. And the first prototype you get is the one that looks beautiful. So it's not necessarily made of the materials that the final product is going to be made out of. So usually it's way heavier and way weaker than it's going to be at the end. But you're starting to get a visual and see if you like that. And so that's when we found that the shade, that kind of squared off, nozzly, dental hygiene look, that's what we found when we saw it in person. And so from there, you can then refine that. So you go from very big steps to much, much smaller refinement as you go. But there are many, many steps involved. So there are a lot of ups and downs when you first start getting the prototype. So the prototype that we just described was that beautiful, this is what it's going to look like prototype. But then you actually start communicating with the manufacturers, and they create different stages of prototypes as well. So the first one you get is very ugly, but it does the job. And then from there, you keep refining that until it now does the job and it looks good. So there are 5, 6 rounds of prototyping is not unheard of. So it is mentally difficult and emotionally difficult when you receive the first one. If the function isn't quite there yet, we have to dial that in, or to see it in its ugly form. It's scary to think about, will we actually get to that beautiful end? And of course you will, and we're getting closer and closer all the time. But that's a difficult process, and you just have to reassure yourself that no, this is the process. Trust the process. You will get there. And in the process, there's also a lot of sleepless nights. For example, the first prototypes that we got, the Dallas lights were going to be held with a kickstand. And so you've got the C-shaped light, and a kickstand kicks out the back. And when we actually received it fell over. So physics were not on our side. It looked like it was going to work. All of the CAD and modeling looked like it was going to work on a computer. And when it was made in reality, we set them up, we're testing for the photo shoot we're about to do, and they roll and fall over. So I had to go back to the drawing board with that. And that's when we came up with having individual magnetized stands. So now these stands sit on your desk or wherever you wish to put them, and then the lights magnetize onto those. So we had to completely redesign the mechanism.
This question for you is probably something that the replica surfaces audience would love to hear. But so you've got this complicated process where you go from idea to prototype. You did a great job explaining the creativity and the thought process that goes into that. Then you have the next big step that you have to take. that you have taken here with Gleason, which is you got to now take your prototype and you got to go to production. And I know that this process scares a lot of founders. It's a very daunting process. Can you speak to that? How has that process been? What did you learn along the way? What can you share with the audience on that front?
While you're going through this process, like, we've learned a lot about like issues with manufacturability. This like the idea of like, can something exist, but then how does it be made? There's all these additional limitations that as a consumer, you're not aware of, but you learn them through this process, and sometimes the whole design has to be tweaked and changed to actually work. Like the studio went through several different iterations of plastic to metal. Ultimately, we settled on like aluminum welded design, but then even that had issues where it would droop because the heat of the welding of putting a cylinder onto a flat piece of aluminum. So there's all these things like you wouldn't expect as you're going through this process, but that becomes highly valuable because you make the product better through those changes, hopefully.
And if you're working with a great firm that understands material science, that understands those physics, that understands the limitations of actual manufacturing. So there are different things that you cannot plastic mold if it has a certain orientation, or you have to.
It won't eject.
It won't eject, exactly. It won't eject if you build it like that. So we have to do it like this. Or, oh, you want wood trim on it. Well, wood trim, we have no way to actually physically attach that. The glue's popping off. There's
always more complexity than it seems at the start.
Exactly. It sounds easy and it isn't. But if you understand that that's what everybody who goes through the design phase goes through, you can mentally steel yourself, and you can get through it knowing that you will get to something that's amazing if you keep pushing.
Makes sense. So what's the deal with the astronaut?
So yeah, I mean, astronauts are the coolest thing. Like if you could be anything, like you're probably going to want to be an astronaut. And it was born out of that space science when we were learning all about melanopsin and those pathways and how this light can make you feel more awake, and seeing they were using that lighting on the International Space Station. So we thought that'd be a cool way to tie it in, this astronaut thing, and that really came into play when we were designing the LCD screen on the back. Like that's really there to show you a battery level or like where your kelvins are or that sort of thing. But we wanted to have like a lot more fun with it because A, we're designing this from the ground up so we can, but B, with this brand, we wanted to just find little ways to give you joy. So for instance, like when you increase the intensity of the light, there'll be a little rocket ship that'll go towards the sun. And that's just, to me, a more playful way of giving that same information, but in a way that's, more accessible. And we, like other things, like if you're not doing anything with the light, you'll see like just the astronaut man just floating in space. We thought that'd be another cool thing. And there's a couple other Easter eggs I won't give away now that we've built into that as well. So yeah, it's just a great way to have fun with that screen and make it feel more like an Atari kind of game than like some stuffy thing where you just look at some numbers.
So lots of details in this and how you've put it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. So we tried to bake in the things that would just make your day feel a little bit better. We're not advocating for massive life changes. Those never stick. If you've tried crash diets or, waking up at 4 a.m. to hustle and get everything done, that stuff never sticks. So baking in small things. So we've got the screens that are just plain fun. We've also got, the spotlight has wheels on the bottom. You can't see them, but that was really important for moving around to, if you do want to use a little bit of natural light, you can go and use that as a complement to this light. You can also easily wheel it from right next to your couch over to wherever you actually want to shoot. So that's massively important. Baked that in, but also hid them. Buttons. So I don't know about you, but I really miss buttons. The little home button on my iPhone, when that went away, I was sad, and I talked about it to anyone who'd listened for a really long time. So I think we're all a little tired of touchscreens. We either grew up with buttons and we lost them, or if you're younger, you kind of never had buttons, and I think you miss them even though you never really had them.
Some nostalgia.
Exactly. There's something incredibly satisfying. So we wanted to make sure that each of the Dallas lights had buttons on it, and the remote control that comes with it also has buttons on it. And so we wanted buttons, but what's interesting is buttons are not at all created equal. You've definitely pressed unsatisfying ones and better ones. So early on, we spent a day, we went to Best Buy and Williams-Sonoma, and we were just these weird customers that went around and we pressed every button on speakers, blenders, microwaves, anything. And we learned that there are so many components to the design of a button. So you've got the depth over which a button travels. You've got the play, how it rocks from side to side. You've got what's the feedback that it gives you. So is it hard to press? Is it extremely easy to press? You probably want something in between. And all of this can be achieved during engineering and manufacturing with dampers, and there's all kinds of controls inside. And so we found our favorites, and we're doing everything we can to emulate that satisfying button feel that we all miss.
Something people need to know about Gleason is, of course, the sister company to that, Replica Surfaces. And Replica Surfaces has always been known for its community and all of these wonderful people around the world who are part of it. And you guys have always done a great job of soliciting feedback from your community and talking to people and understanding what their needs are and their pain points and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about how you've leveraged the community and their feedback in this whole process of building Gleason?
So we would not be here without that community. Like, we survey them quite frequently because they let us know exactly what we need. I feel like we are more connected with our customers, our community, than any other brand, because we've got this amazing place where everybody can gather and share their photos and share their problems, and then we can go, oh, they're doing that. Okay, we can actually make something that solves that problem that it seems many people have, but do it in our way that's true to the brand, and then we know it's going to resonate. So we're incredibly fortunate to have them and be able to get their feedback.
Mm-hmm. So it was from our community that we initially learned that lighting was their absolute biggest pain point. So we were solving their pain points when it came to the surfaces, to the backdrops. We were solving their pain point when it came to the way to set them up, and set them up in any place of the home that had the right sliver of light. We did that with the Replica Studio. But
amazing education.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Amazing education. So I was not a professional photographer before starting Replica,
Right.
but I had the problem of needing to create beautiful photos, beautiful content without the skill set to actually do that. So I taught myself how to do photography, how to create content, so that I could teach our customers who needed that desperately. And so we were tackling all of those aspects of their needs, but that one lingering need of lighting, which is so complex, until this point, we didn't have enough experience, we felt, to properly tackle that and solve that in the right way. And one of the reasons for that is, if I wanted to make just a softbox light, a typical artificial light that you use for product photography, there is zero way that as a small business, I would be able to compete on price or quality with these multinational corporations. So when a large company is placing an order for a product, they're ordering 100,000, 500,000 units because they're so big. And so because of that, their contracts are fantastic, their unit cost is so small. And that's how you can find these incredibly low prices on Amazon. If I tried to create that and I was buying, a couple hundred, 1,000, a very small order, no one's gonna give me a good contract. So we were finding in the process of trying to design other products that the price we were being quoted per unit was the same as the Amazon price. So it would cost me the same price to make it as a customer could just go and buy a comparable item from Amazon. So when you're a small business, you cannot compete on price. What you can compete on is the ingenuity and the quality and that the true passion that you put into the design, because no big corporation will ever focus on that.
And so really caring about their problems. And it's just one more aside with the education, like, people could buy Replica Surface competitor stuff, but and they could buy cheap backdrops on Amazon or other things. We always knew that. So that created the early mindset of like, how can we provide more value? How can we help them more? And that's where your awesome education videos and YouTube videos and the formula course, like all that came in of like, how can we jam in more value and help them even thinking about the problem deeper than just the product, but how it's used and helping them through all of that process.
Right. If I just handed you a backdrop, good luck to you. You know, and that's what the competitors, any of those Amazon knockoffs do. They just hand you a backdrop and you're on your own. And so that's what we didn't want to leave anybody with. We needed to provide you with every product, every piece of education to make that process as easy and truly fun as it could be. And that really leans into our mindset behind Gleason as well, which is just taking away the distracting, techie, difficult to understand aspects of it and making it extremely user-friendly. So when you use the modes on the Dallas lights, you can know what the Kelvin is, you can know what the temperature of your light is, you know, whether your white light is leaning blue or leaning red. We'll tell you that if you need to know that, but you don't have to have an amazing understanding of that to use the product. So we have presets. You can click the neutral button and it goes to 5500 Kelvin, which is neutral. It's the white light that's closest to white, so the closest to neutral. You don't have to know the rest of the science behind it if you don't want to. And so that's really what we're striving for here, making it incredibly easy and fun to use.
That's really cool. You guys are in the middle of this process of launching a new brand. Now, there are a lot of different perceptions of what a brand is. There's maybe some different definitions. Some people may think of Coca-Cola or some other big
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
To Adam and Mandy Gleason, what is brand? What does brand mean to you? What is it that you're trying to create with this brand?
So I don't know what the formal definition of brand is, but the way that Adam and I think about it is it's like a nonverbal communication that you have between your customers and your audience. So that it's how you imbue every step of the relationship you have with them. So from the content that you put out to the experience on the website, what is it like to order? What is the unboxing experience like when they get it? How does all of that make them feel? That's what brand is. It's that communication. And so I think that early on, a lot of people think that it's the logo that you have or the colors that you choose, and that is what a brand is. But those are really informed by what the beliefs of your company are, which are informed by what the beliefs of your customers are.
Great point.
Right? So you should start with what do you stand for and what do you provide, and then the logo and the colors and all of that stems from that. But that is not what makes a brand. And so I think that the most important part of brand too is authenticity. And that word gets thrown around a lot, and everyone's striving for authenticity, but that's actually striving for it is counter to the concept. So I think a lot about like how this affects music, for instance. So like if you think about the band Nirvana, when they were coming out and they were starting the entire grunge revolution, they weren't thinking, okay, well, if I'm making grunge music, then I have to wear this and I have to act like this. They weren't trying to create something. They were that. And then that resonated with the audience. And that's what propelled them. And that is what authenticity is. Do what feels right to you and what you believe in, knowing that there's an audience out there that believes in the exact same thing. I don't know how big it is, but then you will truly resonate with someone. That's brand to us.
So yeah, regarding brand and Gleason and like that's all been tied into the name. With Gleason, we're really embracing that in these 5 years we've become business owners and entrepreneurs and really fully taken on that identity. So we thought with this next brand, it'd be a great opportunity to like fully personalize it and make it the Gleason brand. Literally put our name on the product. Kind of celebrating that we are fully this now versus before we were doctors who were learning how to do this, and we did a good job while we were learning, but now it's become who we are. And with Dallas Lights too, even we could have named that anything, but we chose Dallas Lights because we wouldn't be entrepreneurs, we wouldn't be business owners if we didn't move to Dallas. and Dallas is such a great place for small business owners. So we wanted to tip the hat to that. And kind of another cool thing about that is if we're going city names, that creates a cool thought experiment for next products. Like what would be Gleason Tokyo? What would be Sydney? It could be anything. So it creates this cool like potential future products with these names.
And stamping your name and creating a brand that has your name on it, I think it also provides a good pressure to do the right thing by your customers, right? My name is physically on the brand. It is physically on the product. It's stamped on the product in a very elegant way. But by doing that, I mean, that's the pressure you need to not sacrifice form, not sacrifice function. Always do the right thing.
You used an important word a minute ago, pressure. When you're launching a new brand, and we've talked about all the things and all the thought that you guys have put into the brand, into the product line, it's a very difficult process. It's a process that tends to bring out the best in you or the worst in you, depending on how the process goes. It tells you a lot about who you are. Can you talk a little bit about the difficulty, sort of the personal growth side of this that you've had to go through to do a brand like this? Because this isn't just, creating a quick commodity that's going to be sold on Amazon. You really, like everything we've talked about today, you've put your heart and soul into Gleason. How do you do that? I'm sure you've questioned yourself many times. I'm sure you've doubted yourself on, what the heck am I doing here, kind of thing. Talk about that process personally in the development of the brand.
I think that one of the things that has really helped both of us is that we're doing it together. So it can feel incredibly lonely when you're building something new. It can feel like all of the problems that you're experiencing and all of the times that something doesn't work the way you want it to, that it's something that's happening only to you. And it's easy to forget that this is part of the process that every product designer has gone through, who cares, since the beginning of time. And so to be able to do that together and work through problems together and emotionally support each other when things are not going the way you want them or you're way off timelines for something, I mean, that's been amazing. And I'm not saying that every marriage could or should ever do that, design products together by any stretch, but for us, for me, that to have Adam as a support system in that has been, invaluable. To do it alone would feel really, really lonely.
Adam, you were telling me last night at dinner, and we were talking at dinner about this 10%, 90% kind of communication model that you guys have. Are you comfortable explaining that?
I'm sorry. I learned that from TikTok.
Yeah, it's from a TikTok. It's not ours.
I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, what Mandy and I implemented from this TikTok was basically like an emotional energy level system where if I'm at 10% reserves, like she knows that I'm getting low, or if she's at low, then I know maybe pick up a little more slack. Or if we're both low, then we just have the rule of let's be kind to each other above anything. And with that, there's a cool kind of musical reference to it. The Beatles had each other. That's how they were able to stay normal and grounded through this whole process where the world was spinning around them and they had people chasing them at airports and all of this craziness was happening. They were able to stay grounded because they had each other and could stay related to that. Versus Elvis was his own thing. There was no other Elvis. There will never be another Elvis. And I'm sure he felt that in his life, this incredible isolation of being the only Elvis in the world. So that idea that Mandy and I can be each other's John and Paul, or maybe I'm Ringo, is, I think, helped us get through this incredibly challenging thing to do.
What future products do you see in the Gleason brand, Gleason line?
So yeah, the cool thing is we don't really know what we're going to make next, but we can be guided by the things that we're drawn to: multifunctionality, minimalism, beautiful products that function really well. So we can do that. But with Gleason, the cool thing is we don't we could go in tons of different directions. We could take what we've learned about lighting and design different kinds of lights for different purposes. We could dive more into the circadian pathway, and maybe we come up with sleep gummies or something else that helps enhance the other functions that we've got from the Gleason products. Or it could be just items for home decor that like can hide away and be beautiful and multifunctional in that way. But so we've got all this like kind of laterality of where we want to go. For sure, we will always ask our customers because that's always remained like a path that we can trust. If we know we are listening, then we know we can create something people will want.
And we'll go in that direction, always with the ethos of keeping things beautiful, exceptionally functional, and that just make your day better in small ways.
Wow, guys, this has been great. Love all the detail. Appreciate you taking the time to explain everything, all the nuances. I think when people hear about all this, they're going to be absolutely in love with what you guys are making.